Before someone comes back into your life, something begins to shift, and it almost always happens in silence. Not the kind that feels like punishment, but the kind that feels like truth. Still, honest, undeniable. You stop reaching out, not because you've stopped caring, but because you've started remembering who you are. And in that space, when you're no longer fighting for someone to see your worth, they start to notice what's missing. Not just your presence, but the version of themselves they once felt secure around. That absence speaks louder than any words you could send. At first, they may not show it. They may think they've found freedom, something new, something lighter. But when the noise settles, when the illusion fades, they start to feel what's no longer available to them. Your warmth, your loyalty, your grounding presence. And that's when the questions begin to rise. Quiet questions, private ones, the kind they don't even say out loud. Did I make a mistake? Has he changed? Did I lose something I didn't realize I needed? This is where everything starts to turn. But here's what most men never see coming. What really flips the dynamic isn't the silence, or the absence, or even the regret. It's what she finds when she tries to come back. It's you, no longer waiting in the place she left you, but standing taller, sharper, more grounded than ever before. Stay with me. Because when we get to the final truth, the one that reveals what must happen if she wants to come back, it might change how you see everything, especially yourself. And if you find value in this message, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to Stoic Station. This is where we grow, not through noise, but through stillness. Not by chasing, but by becoming. 1. They start thinking about coming back when you stop chasing. There's a moment, quiet, deliberate, and powerful, when you stop reaching out. You don't announce it, you don't explain it, you simply let go, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. That's the moment when everything begins to shift. When a man in his 30s or 40s chooses not to chase, it's not because he doesn't care. It's because he's finally learned the difference between fighting for someone and losing himself. Chasing is often mistaken for strength, but in truth, it's a form of emotional dependence disguised as devotion. And once you wake up to that truth, you stop. You stop texting. You stop explaining your worth. You stop reminding her of what she walked away from. And in that stillness, something unexpected happens. The silence speaks. It echoes into the places she thought she had closed off. She begins to feel the absence of something once certain, your presence, your loyalty, your energy. That absence creates space, not just between the two of you, but inside her. It stirs questions she hadn't prepared to ask. Why isn't he trying anymore? Has he moved on? Did I mean less to him than I thought? Or does he finally know how much he's worth? That's when the cycle quietly starts to break. The dynamic that once had her in control begins to unravel. Because you are no longer offering yourself as someone to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. And that is the beginning of power. Not over her, but within you. It's not about revenge. It's not about silence as a tactic. It's about remembering who you are when no one is validating it for you. When she feels that shift, not just hears it, but feels it, that's when she begins to wonder, what if I was wrong to let him go? 2. The escape hatch wasn't what they imagined. When someone leaves a relationship, they often tell themselves a story, that on the other side of the breakup is something lighter, something more exciting, more peaceful, more aligned with who they think they've become. They imagine a clean break as a doorway to freedom, freedom from responsibility, from emotional weight, from the complexities of intimacy. It feels empowering at first, like they've finally taken control of their life, like they're breathing again. But that fantasy has a short shelf life. and reality doesn't care much for romantic illusions. Maybe she pictured herself falling into the arms of someone new, someone who would instantly understand her, thrill her, require less emotional effort. Maybe she thought quiet nights alone would feel restful instead of hollow. Maybe she imagined time with friends, weekends without compromise, space to explore who she is outside the context of the relationship. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the luster begins to fade. The absence she wanted starts to grow in all the wrong places. It shows up in the silence after the laughter fades, in the mornings when there's no message waiting, in the bed that suddenly feels too wide. She may not say it, she may not even realize it at first, but the fantasy is bending under the weight of real life. That's when the memories start to come back. Not the highlight reel of romantic dates, but the quieter moments, the kind that used to feel ordinary. The way you listened without interrupting, the way you grounded her when the world felt too much, the feeling of being deeply known, even in her worst moments. She begins to realize that what she walked away from wasn't just comfort, it was connection, it was emotional depth, it was presence, and that kind of connection isn't easily replaced. It can't be replicated through casual flings or weekend distractions, because what you brought to the table wasn't just attention, it was intention. That's the cruel paradox of the escape hatch. From a distance, it looks like a way out. But when you crawl through it and turn around, what you left behind often starts to look a lot more like home. She may not be unhappy with where she landed, but the freedom she chased doesn't feel as full as she expected. The peace she hoped for feels more like quiet loneliness. The excitement wears thin, and suddenly, the stability she once took for granted starts to matter more than she ever admitted. But here's what's important to understand. Her disappointment is not your invitation to rush back in. Let her feel it. Let her live in the gap between what she expected and what actually is. That gap is where growth begins. Not just hers, but yours too. Because you didn't walk away, you didn't need an escape hatch. You stood in the discomfort. You honored the connection, even after it fractured. And now, in your absence, she's being confronted not just with missing you, but with misjudging what life would feel like without you. That realization, that's the moment the ground starts to shift. It's not about convincing her to return. It's about letting the reality of her choice lead her to her own reckoning, one that doesn't need your words, only your absence. 3. They have to feel the loss. Letting go isn't about resentment. It's not about punishment. It's about allowing life to do what it's designed to do, reveal truth through absence, and teach value through loss. When someone walks away from you, they're choosing a reality without you in it. And if they're ever going to reconsider that choice, they need to live in that reality long enough to feel what it's really like. That means you stop showing up for them in the quiet ways they always took for granted. You stop checking in on their big days. You stop offering support during their small struggles. You stop sending those little messages that once reminded them of your presence, thinking of you. You've got this, proud of you. Those messages carried more weight than you probably realized. And now your silence will carry even more. Because here's the truth. As long as you're still offering emotional comfort, they're not truly gone. You've become a safety net, something soft to land on when the world feels too heavy. And in that role, you rob them of the experience they need to have, the realization that you're no longer theirs to rely on. If she broke up with you, and yet she still gets to feel like you're just one text away, then she hasn't lost anything. There's no contrast between being with you and being without you. And without contrast, there's no clarity. This is not about turning cold. This is about becoming clear. When she doesn't hear from you on her birthday, she might wonder why. When she achieves something and you don't acknowledge it, she'll notice that gap. When the world feels off, and she can't find your voice grounding her anymore. Something subtle but powerful starts to shift. It's in those moments of emptiness that meaning returns, because people don't reflect on what they haven't lost. They only look back when something used to be there, when the comfort, the loyalty, the steady emotional presence disappears, and they have to ask themselves, did I take that for granted? You are not a background character in her life. You're not an emotional assistant, on call to cheer her up when she's low, or lift her when she's doubting herself. You once held a sacred space in her world, but that space was given freely, with love. And when love is no longer honored, its presence must be withdrawn. This isn't cruelty, this is self-respect. Because if you continue to act like nothing has changed, if you continue to pour into her life without commitment or reciprocation, then you're telling her without words that she can leave and still have all the benefits of being close to you. And eventually, that not only dilutes her respect for the connection, it dilutes your respect for yourself. Let her world feel colder without you in it. Let her notice when no one is texting her good night. Let her remember what it felt like to have someone who cared deeply and consistently, because only when she feels the absence of that warmth can she begin to realize the magnitude of what she walked away from. You cannot re-enter someone's life as a privilege if you never stopped acting like you belonged there. Sometimes love has to go silent for someone to finally hear what it was saying all along. Loss is a mirror. It reflects what mattered. But only when the noise fades, only when the comfort is gone, only when the love no longer shows up on command. That's when they start to feel it. Not just the loss of you, but the loss of who they were when they had you. And that, more than anything else, is what they will miss. 4. Every day of silence should feel like a price. They're paying. There's a quiet kind of transformation that happens when a man stops chasing, not loudly, not out of pride, but with the kind of inner conviction that says, I'm not waiting in the same place you left me. Every day you remain silent after the breakup. Every moment you choose not to reach out, not to update her on your life, not to keep the emotional doorway cracked open. That's not distance, that's definition. And it begins to shape the story she tells herself about what you meant and what she may have lost. You're not doing it to manipulate her. You're doing it to return to yourself. You're no longer reacting to her absence. You're investing in your presence. You're growing. You're grounding. You're remembering who you were before the relationship blurred your edges. And with each day that passes, your silence starts to speak more clearly than your words ever could. You're not faking a better life for show. You're not uploading staged moments to make her jealous. But life has this way of capturing truth. Through your energy, your posture, your laughter with friends, the peace in your eyes when you're simply enjoying being alive again. And if she sees it, if your world happens to brush against hers online or through mutual connections, what she'll see isn't performance, it's evolution. And that's when something subtle but powerful begins to stir. Because silence, when paired with progress, becomes undeniable. She starts to realize that while she's been undecided, you've been becoming. While she's been wondering what else might be out there, you've been building a life that doesn't include her as its centerpiece. And whether she admits it or not, that changes things. There's no fear in being rejected by someone you've already left behind. But there is fear in realizing you might have walked away from someone who was still rising. Regret whispers more loudly than rejection ever could. It says, I could have had that. I could have grown with him, and now he's growing without me. That is not a threat. That is the natural consequence of indecision. The longer she stays away, the more she should feel that time isn't standing still for you. That your life is not a pause button waiting for her to press play. It's moving forward, quietly, steadily, without drama or theatrics. And every sunrise that passes without her, every new step you take on your own path, becomes a gentle but firm reminder. You are no longer hers to circle back to without effort. She must feel that you are becoming less reachable, not because you're being cruel, but because you're becoming complete. There's a difference between missing someone who's waiting and missing someone who's moved on. The first creates hope, the second creates urgency. Let that urgency grow, not from revenge, but from reality. You're not where she left you. You're not lingering in the past. You've stopped orbiting her emotional needs and started revolving around your own center. And if she's ever going to realize what you truly meant to her, that realization won't come from your voice. It will come from your absence and the life you've built inside it. So let the days pass. Let the silence stretch. Let her sit with the echo of what's no longer guaranteed, because every day that goes by should remind her you were never just an option, and if she waits too long, you may no longer be available, not out of spite, but because your future demanded more than her hesitation. 5. They must feel like they need to earn you back. This is the turning point, the moment where the power dynamic quietly but undeniably shifts. Because no matter what happened between you and her, whether the breakup was messy, confusing, or just faded into silence, there comes a time when she may consider coming back. And when that time comes, what she meets on the other side must not be the same version of you she left behind. If she believes that all she has to do is whisper, "I miss you," and you'll come running, then she doesn't truly understand your worth. If she thinks you've been waiting like a loyal shadow, just counting the days until she reappears, she'll never see the full weight of what it meant to lose you. And that's the mistake many men make. They mistake love for availability. They think being open to reconnection means offering themselves unconditionally again. But love, without self-respect, quickly becomes a gift too easily taken for granted. You are not something to be returned to like an old comfort. You are someone to be earned, not just through words, but through consistent, intentional actions. She must sense that your warmth is still possible, but no longer automatic, that your presence is still generous, but no longer free. When she reaches out, she should feel the shift in your tone, the quiet hesitation, the pause before you say, "Maybe we could talk." That pause is everything. It tells her that you are no longer waiting, you're evolving. That time hasn't just passed, it's shaped you. That you are now a man who holds himself to a higher standard and expects the same in return. This isn't about punishing her. This isn't about playing hard to get. This is about honoring what you've built in her absence, your peace, your clarity, your dignity. The moment she returns, she should sense that the breakup changed more than the relationship. It changed you. Let her feel uncertain. Let her feel like she has to prove herself again. Because if you remove that effort, if you welcome her back with open arms, as if nothing ever happened, then you strip the experience of its meaning. You undo the very silence, the very distance, the very healing that made her want to come back in the first place. People don't value what they don't work for, and someone who left should never feel entitled to re-enter without effort. The foundation needs to be rebuilt, slowly and deliberately. She should want to repair what was broken, not just reclaim what was lost. She should be the one wondering, did I lose him forever? And you, calm, centered, self-assured, should not rush to answer that question, because in truth, it should take time. You deserve that time. Time to see if she truly means what she says. Time to see if her actions align with her intentions. Time to watch her earn back a place in your life, not because she wants comfort, but because she values connection, real, respectful, grown connection. This is the full circle moment, the place where your silence becomes strength, where your restraint becomes power, where your value as a man is no longer just felt, it's recognized. Because you did not chase, you did not plead, you chose to rise, rebuild, and reclaim yourself. And now, if she wants to walk beside you again, she must first understand that the man she left no longer lives here. She's not coming back to the past. She's coming back to you. And you are no longer where she left you. So here's my personal reflection and life lesson drawn from everything we've just explored. As a man who's walked through pain, through silence, through the haunting quiet of unanswered messages and the ache of abandonment, I don't speak these truths lightly. I speak them because I've lived them, and I've watched other men, strong men, forget who they were in the echo of a door that closed behind someone they loved. When a woman walks away, especially one you invested your soul into, your first instinct is often to reach out, to explain, to prove, to show her that you're still here, still willing, still loyal. But what I've learned, the hard way, is that real strength isn't in the pursuit. It's in the pause. The moment you stop chasing and start choosing yourself again, everything changes. You don't need to perform. You don't need to post pictures pretending you've moved on. You simply need to move on, genuinely, quietly, powerfully. Because when she left, she expected you to crumble, to wait, to linger in her emotional orbit. And when you don't, when you rise instead of reach, grow instead of grasp, that's when her fantasy begins to fracture. She imagined freedom, a better life, a lighter path. But what she rarely considered was how empty that path might feel without your presence in it. She expected space to feel liberating, not lonely. And when the silence she sought becomes the silence that surrounds her, the illusion begins to break. That's not your doing. That's life correcting itself. But here's the part too many men miss. Just because she starts to look back doesn't mean you rush forward. That's not how healing works. That's not how self-worth is honored. If she wants to return, she must return with reverence, with effort, with accountability. And you must allow her to earn it. Because if you're willing to offer yourself freely to someone who left without consequence, then what you're really telling her is that your love comes cheap, that your value was never tied to how she treated you, only to how deeply you felt for her. And that's not love. That's dependency. I've learned that every man has a turning point, a quiet, unseen moment where he decides that his dignity is worth more than one more unanswered message, that his peace is more valuable than her validation. And when that moment comes, everything begins to shift, not just between you and her, but inside you. That shift is where your power lives. So here's what I'd say to any man standing in the aftermath of heartbreak. Don't chase what walked away. Don't fill the silence she left with noise. Let the quiet shape you. Let it teach you who you really are when no one's watching. Let it remind you that your presence was never the problem. Your availability was. And if one day she circles back, don't greet her with the same open door. Greet her with the strength you found in her absence. Let her wonder, let her work, let her rebuild the bridge she burned, one step at a time. Not because you want to hurt her, but because you no longer need her to heal you. Let your life speak for itself. Let your silence echo louder than your explanations. Let your growth be the answer to the question she never thought she'd ask. Did I lose him forever? That's the lesson. That's the truth. And that's what real men carry into the next chapter of their lives. Not bitterness, but boundaries. Not anger, but awareness. And above all else, the quiet knowing that they are enough, even when no one says it out loud. If this message speaks to you, go ahead and like the video, and don't forget to subscribe to Stoic Station. Thank you for watching, and thank you for choosing your strength.